Okay, everyone, next up we've got Devlin Peck, and he's an e-learning consultant. He's going to blow your mind sharing some tips on how to share xAPI statements without code. So over to you, Devlin. Have fun.
Thank you, Kat. I am happy to be here. Okay, so everyone who is here, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. This session is designed for you to follow along, and we are going to move fast. So even if you haven't ever heard of xAPI, you can follow along here. We're not going to be writing any code, as the title says, and I will give a quick xAPI crash course, but what we really want to do is get hands-on here. If you do get left behind or stuck or anything like that, don't worry, because these sessions are recorded, and I think a week from now you'll be able to view the full recording. So feel free to just watch, but I will be moving somewhat slowly with the technical steps so that people can try to follow along. So if you have not already, please go ahead and go to please go to this site right here, devlinpeck.com/reference/TLC2020. This is going to have some important links for us. These first three are the accounts that we need for the session. We're going to be using Glide Apps, Zapier, and Watershed Essentials LRS. And there are some links at the bottom here that we will need throughout the session if you're following along live. So this is the link. I'm going to go ahead and move on from here, and we're going to dive into what xAPI is. So xAPI, I'm assuming most of you have heard of it at least. It stands for the Experience API, and it's a technical specification for the learning and development industry. Specifically, it defines how we structure, send, and retrieve data so that data from tool A and tool B gets along nicely. And when you have developers looking at that data and creating visualizations and dashboards, all of that data is in the same language, so it's really easy to work with. The cool thing about xAPI 2 is that it does let you track learning wherever it occurs, not just on a learning management system on your computer, but also on mobile apps, which is what we're going to be taking a look at today. On websites, in flight simulators, you can collect xAPI data from actual planes. So that is a really neat feature of xAPI. And again, as you probably have heard, xAPI data is sent in the form of statements. So an xAPI statement follows this actor, verb, object format. So for example, Devlin watched the xAPI 101 video, or Devlin attended the Write xAPI Statements Without Code conference session. So, just like a simple sentence, that's the human readable version of an xAPI statement. And these statements get sent to a learning record store. So again, today we're using Watershed, and you'll find out why soon enough. But this is an LRS. It's different from an LMS because all it does is hold all of this xAPI data, and most of the time it lets you create some visualizations with that data. So again, most of the time that xAPI comes up, at least when I talk about it, it's always in the context of writing some JavaScript to send the statements we want. As you may have noticed in your authoring tools like Adobe Captivate or Articulate Storyline, you can publish a tin can or xAPI course, and it will send xAPI statements without you writing any code. But we're looking at how you can send custom xAPI statements. We're going beyond the default, what's coming out of the authoring tools. And yeah, you'll see. We're going to dive into this. So again, we're using Glide, Watershed, and Zapier. If you've been on the conference app at all, it was built with Glide. It's a really, really cool app that lets you create a web app from a Google Sheet. No coding knowledge required. Super easy to use. Again, we're going to dive into it today. Hopefully you've made that account. And if you were at day one of the conference, then we're basically picking up right from where Kath left off, because she walks some people through how to make a more stripped back version of the conference app. We're also using Watershed. Like I said, that's where we're going to be storing our xAPI data. And we're going to use Zapier to get the data from the Glide app to Watershed LRS. And Zapier, if you haven't heard of it, It integrates with thousands of tools, and its primary purpose is bringing data to and from different apps and making them speak the same language, so to speak. So here's just a simple, quick visualization. We're going to be rigging up a button in Glide so that when someone presses it, Zapier takes that data and moves it into an xAPI statement that gets sent to Watershed. So we're going to dive into it now. So I hope everyone has their accounts open and signed in. So we have Glide here, Zapier here, and Watershed here. Again, if you do want to follow along and you don't have these open yet, you can try to do it really quickly using these links, but we do need to forge ahead. So let's go ahead and get started by clicking on this first in-session link at the bottom of this page. So again, devlinpeck.com/reference/TLC2020, click on link number 1. And it will open this stripped back version of the Learning Conference app. So if you see this here, you're in the right place. You'll also see this round black copy this app button. So go ahead and select that, and it's going to copy the app into your Glide account. And it might take a couple of minutes because it needs to download all of the data and copy the Google Sheet that you need. So again, you'll see this. I think it will just move beyond this once it's done loading. Let's see. If not, just press do this later. Yeah, there we go. And just click through these tutorials. If this is your first time signing into Glide, you'll see all of this. It's trying to tell you how to use the tool. Just click through that. I'll give everyone, 30 seconds or so to get this loaded up and to click through those little tutorial pieces. And once we are in the app, we want to add a button so that whenever you go to one of these session pages, there's a button at the bottom where you can click mark as attended, and it will send an xAPI statement to the Learning Record Store saying that Devlin attended this conference session. So it's pretty simple what we're trying to do here. I'm hoping everyone has it open now. From the home page, you'll see this sessions heading with some options beneath it. Just click on one of them. It doesn't matter which one. Because the cool thing about Glide is that these sessions are templated. So when we add a button to one of these sessions, it's going to get added to all of the sessions. So again, from the home screen, just click on the first session, this design thinking one, and we will be good to go. So with this session open, we're looking in the top right of the screen next to where it says components, and we're going to click on this blue plus icon because we want to add a component to this app. So we'll press the plus icon, and then on the right, you'll see a bunch of different components that we can add. We want to add just a regular button component. So you'll see it's the 4th section down, and it's the whole section is titled buttons. Just click on the very first option in that section. It's titled button. So nice and simple. Click on that, and you'll see a button at the bottom of the page now. It will say go. We don't want it to say go. We want it to say mark as attended. So on the right-hand side now, you'll see a text entry box where you can change the title of the button. So erase where it says go, and I'm going to type in mark as attended, just to be clear with what this button is doing here. So once you have it titled how you want it, we're going to still look on the right-hand side of the screen, and next to where it says layout, we want to select where it says features. And that's going to let us change what the button is actually doing. So again, we're changing from layout to features. And right now, the action for this button is to open a link. We don't want to do that. We want to send an xAPI statement. And again, we're doing that with Zapier. So click on this drop-down menu and select Zapier down here at the bottom. It's the very last option in that drop-down list. Once you do select Zapier, it's going to make your button disappear. Don't be alarmed. It's only not there because we don't have this action fully configured. So pressing that button wouldn't do anything. So we need to fix that. So with that button's action set to Zapier, it says no zaps are configured yet. That's okay. We're going to get there soon. But there are a couple more things we can do in Glide before we hop over to Zapier. So first, you'll see this confirmation message. That's going to be whatever appears on the user's screen when they click this button. So sent is okay. I'm just going to change it to attendance recorded. So again, it's not really important what you have here. It's just what the user is going to see. So we'll change that to attendance recorded. And the more important part now, you see in the blue text where it says add value. These are the values that we're going to be sending from the Glide app to Zapier. And basically, those are the values that Zapier is going to have to work with to create the xAPI statement. So let's add a value, and we'll see what our options are. So the default is the current date.time. We don't need the current date or time. We don't need that because the xAPI statement is already going to know what date and time it is. So we do want the user's email address because, again, an xAPI statement is an actor, a verb, and an object. We need to know who the user is. And the most common way to do that with an xAPI statement is with their email address. The Glide app knows what the user's email address is because when they sign in, they have to enter an email address. So we're good to go there. Value 1 should be the user's email address. Go ahead and click add value again. And this time, so now we know who it is that's clicking this button, but we want to know which session they're viewing. So we need to pass along some details about the session itself. So value 2 is going to be at the very bottom of this drop-down list. It's going to be the talk URI. Okay. So I'm going to break this down a little bit. Just select it for now. So value 2 should be the talk URI. I'm going to go ahead and open up the sheet to show you what's in that column. So, like I said earlier, if this is your first time in a Glide app, all of the content from this app is in a Google Sheet. And we can access that Google Sheet by clicking this pen icon on the left-hand side. And you don't have to do this. We're not going to change anything in this Google Sheet. I'm just going to show you here. So I'm going to click this pen icon, the second one from the bottom on the left-hand side, and it says Edit Sheet. Once you click on that, it will open up the Google Sheet that's powering this entire app in a new tab. So with this sheet open, I'm going to go to the Talks tab. And you can see the list of every single talk that's going on at this conference. Okay. Look at column B though, where it says Talk URI. URI stands for Uniform Resource Identifier, and it's a concept that is pretty important with xAPI. And this is because this deals with the object part of an xAPI statement. So we know who's performing the action. We know what action they're performing. They're attending a session, but we want to know what object they're performing that action on. And in this case, it's, say we're looking at this one right here, making creative learning videos. We could just include, or we might want to just include the talk's name, but say next year, there's another talk with the same title, or say at a different conference, there's another talk with the same exact title. The URI is important. This serves as a unique ID that will always refer to this conference session this year at the Learning Conference. So again, we're not going to get super in depth into URIs because there is some stuff that, the main thing is that when you're creating a URI, you use a domain that you control. So since this is referring to the Learning Conference session, we're going to use their domain. We're going to include the year, so we know what year this session is occurring. We're going to add talks to this, and it looks like a URL too. But the thing about URIs is that they don't have to go to a public-facing web page. So if you paste this, in your browser, it's not going to bring you anywhere. It's going to be like an 404 not found. The important thing is that every time we refer to this session, we use this URI. That's what I'll say about that. We will have to deal with URIs a bit in a later step, but just know now, it's basically just a long form URL for the talk's title, and it is important for the xAPI statement. So we need to add one more value. So hop back over to this Glide apps page if you did leave it. And value 3 will be the talk's name, just the simple talk itself, the talk's title. This is what we're going to want to look at when we're analyzing that data and looking at that statement stream. We're just going to want to see the name of the talk, in most cases. So value 3 will be this talk option, and that will just be the plain text title of the talk. If you've made it that far, then we're just about good to go with Glide. We're going to have to come back and do one more thing in here down the line. But next, we're going to go to Zapier and actually set up this Zap and do something with this data. So go to your Zapier tab if you have that open. And again, you can try to quickly sign in if you haven't signed in yet. I'll give everyone, a few seconds to get over here.
Hey, Devlin.
Yeah.
I've just had a question from the audience. How do you handle GDPR or other privacy and data protection laws with Zapier?
So, to my understanding, Zapier isn't storing your information. Again, I'm not a super GDPR expert on this. I would double check on that, but Zapier is kind of like the middleman. So I don't think they're going to be storing all of your data in the database. But GDPR is a concern when it comes to the learning record store, which is where that data will be stored. I know that Learning Locker, learning record store, they have a GDPR tool on their enterprise plan that lets you, gives you the GDPR tools you would need to handle data based off those requirements. I'm not sure of a similar tool with Watershed. So again, that is a deeper topic. I've done a good bit of research myself, but I'm based in the States and don't have to deal with that with too many of my clients. But I have gotten clients set up with xAPI using Learning Locker who are based in Europe. Just know that you might want to, you will need to be careful with your LRS options if you are based in Europe and need to comply with that. Okay, so we are going to get started with Zapier now. So once you're signed in, on the left, you'll see this black plus icon. And when you mouse over it, it will say make a Zap. So go ahead and select that. Zap is just the term for, a zap. It's going to zap your data from tool A to tool B. That's what we're going for. I'm going to close this guide on the right just to give us more screen real estate. And here we go. Here's the format. We can name our Zap by clicking the Name Your Zap option in the top left. And the format is when this happens, do this. Okay, so we're going to need to fill this out. So I'll name my Zap. We'll call it the attendance recorder. Okay, and then I'll just press enter. And now in the when this happens box, it'll tell you to choose an app and an event. And again, there are thousands of different apps we can choose from here. We're just going to type in Glide because that is the app we're working from. So type in Glide, you'll see its logo here, and go ahead and select the Glide option. The trigger event defaults to new Zapier action, and that is the only option we can choose right now. So go ahead and leave that selected. We'll press the blue continue button. And now it wants us to sign into Glide. So go ahead and click that blue sign into Glide button, but it's going to be a bit different than what you expect. It doesn't want your username and password. It wants an API key. So note that this did pop up in a new window. So I'm just going to Alt Tab back over to the main window, and we need to go back over to Glide. Okay. So navigate back over to the window where we added the button. And when you're over here, we're going to click this settings wheel or cog on the left-hand side. Okay. So it actually has a little warning sign next to it saying the accent color is too similar. Don't worry about that, but that's the icon you're looking for on the left. That's the one you want to click. So go ahead and select that cog wheel. And then on the right-hand side, under where it says settings, you'll see a design, general, and sign in option. We want to choose the one right in the middle where it says general. So settings, general, and then scroll down to the bottom. And the second option from the bottom will be Zapier. And you'll see this Zapier API key with an option to copy it to the clipboard. So again, settings, general, scroll down, choose the copy to clipboard option next to where it says Zapier API key. If it copied successfully, it will say copied in the UI. Hop back over to this Zapier window where it's asking us for the API key. And then I'm just going to Control V, paste it right in there. Okay, so just let me know if anyone missed that, but I'm gonna go ahead and press yes, continue once we've pasted that API key in this Zapier window. All right, so once that's done, I'm going to navigate back over to the Zapier tab. And sure enough, it shows our Glide account here, the Learning Conference xAPI demo connected to Zapier. That's what we want to see. And we'll go ahead and press that blue continue button to move right along. It wants us to name our Zap next. So this is the name that's going to show up when we're in Glide and we're choosing which zap we're going to fire when someone presses that button. This is the name that's going to show up. So we'll just, again, call this the attendance recorder. You can name that whatever you want, but I'm just naming it based off of the context here. So we'll press continue once you've given that zap a name. And there we go. It wants to test our trigger. Go ahead and press the test trigger blue button. And here it will give us 12 sample values. So, usually when you're setting up a new app with Zapier, it will give you sample data. Like it will tell us, oh, value 1 is that user's email address, value 2 is that talk URI, and value 3 is that talk name. It's not giving us here with Glide, maybe because it's in beta. But it's also kind of based off of how we have to set it up. But don't worry, we know what values 1, 2, and 3 are because we just set them up. So press continue. And there we go. Our Zapier action for Glide is set up. Now we need to say what's going to happen with that data that we get from Glide whenever they press that mark as attended button. So like we said earlier, our app this time is going to be Watershed LRS. And this is why we're using Watershed for this, because they have a native Zapier integration. So that's awesome. There aren't many other learning record stores that do integrate with Zapier. But if you are interested, just let me know, because there is a bit of open source code, and we would actually just use a code action, and it's going to be really similar to this workflow we're about to use with Watershed. But for now, just for time's sake, we are going to stick with Watershed LRS. So click on that after you've searched for it. Where it gives you the option to choose the action and event, we're going to choose send a statement. Because again, that's what we're doing. We're sending an xAPI statement. Once the app is Watershed LRS and the action is send a statement, click this nice big blue continue button. And once again, this time it wants us to sign into Watershed LRS. It doesn't want our username and password. It wants our endpoint, key, and secret. So click the sign in option. Once you get this window up, navigate back over to our main window and then hop on over to Watershed LRS. This is where we need to pull all of that information from. So again, I'll give everyone a minute to get signed in. If there are any questions, now would be a good time while everyone's catching up. So again, this is watershedlrs.com. If you are following along, try to get signed in here. This is what you'll see once you are signed in. It's going to have some sample data. In my case, I changed my resolution to make it easier for everyone to see who's viewing. So I have this like mobile hamburger icon in the top right. Once you're signed in, just go to data, and then you'll see a drop down like this. We want to go to data, xAPI data. Okay. So from the top menu bar, that's data, xAPI data, once you're signed into Watershed LRS. I'm going to move along here. You will notice once you get to that xAPI data tab, the first thing you'll see is this Watershed LRS endpoint. That's exactly what we want, because that's exactly what this Zapier window is asking for. So go ahead and just click on this and it will get highlighted. I'm going to Control-C, copy it, use Command-C if you're on a Mac. I'm going to hop back over to this Zapier window and paste in the LRS endpoint in that first dialog box where it's asking me for it. After that, it wants the key and secret. So you'll notice here there is no key and secret. It's because we need to press this blue Add Activity Provider button. Okay, so in the xAPI world, if you're sending xAPI statements to a learning record store, you're an activity provider. And I'm using you here to mean like if you're an e-learning course, not like you as a person. So if you're an e-learning course, or in this case, our app, since it's going to be sending xAPI statements, it's going to be considered an activity provider. So let's go ahead and press that blue Add Activity Provider button. You can edit it and rename it. I'm not going to worry about that right now. The important thing is that we just get this key and secret. So we're going to copy the key. I'm going to Alt-Tab to get back over here to the Zapier window and paste that key in that second dialog box. And I'm going to copy the secret and paste that in where it's asking me for the secret. So again, the key is kind of like the username and the secret is the password. So some learning record stores will refer to it as the username and password, but it is this key and secret that we're talking about. So,
Hey, Deb.
Yeah.
I've just got someone in the audience saying they can't send a statement. It won't let me select an action event. Can't add an action to the watershed LRS action in Zapier. Do you know anything about that?
I do not. I haven't seen that before. Yeah, I mean, there should only be two options when we select watershed LRS. I wonder if maybe there was an issue with the first part of the equation. So over here, like if you scroll up, if this is checked off and looks good, and this one still isn't giving you that option, I'm not sure what could be wrong there. Yeah.
Cool.
Sorry, I haven't seen that before.
No, that's good. Thank you, Devlin.
Okay. So I'm gonna try to keep moving here. Once we have this endpoint, key, and secret all added here, we are gonna press this yes, continue option. And again, I do wanna, so if you did that successfully in your Zapier tab now, you'll see it say watershed LRS account, watershed LRS. It'll show us signed in. That's exactly what we want. Here's this first step. So again, make sure it's watershed LRS, exactly like this with this logo. And the action event should be, it gives me these two options. I've never run into anything else. So we're just going with that basic send a statement. So here we are, we added that LRS account. And now we get to the juicy stuff. This is where we choose which elements we're actually including in our xAPI statement. So if you are familiar with xAPI, you will be familiar with some of these things. The actor email, that's how we decided we're going to identify our user, because that's the information we do have from them. So we're going to click on this actor email dialog box. And you see here, we can use these sample values that come from Glide. Okay, so you see sample value 1, value 2, value 3. We know we want sample value 1 because we set sample value 1 as the user's email address. So just go ahead and select that and then click off of that, click on the side to close that dialog box. The actor's name, we don't know because we only require their email address. The actor account name and account homepage, that's just another way to identify someone if you don't have their email address. So we're not going to use that option here. The verb, we know that we want to use an attended verb. So I'm going to just click on that verb dialog box now, and I'm going to type in the word attended. So you'll see two options here. Option 1, it shows us the attended as the verb's display. But if you look beneath that, you'll see this URI. So again, this is the verb ID. It is in the form of a uniform resource identifier, which means that it looks like a URL, but for verbs, we really don't want to create our own URLs like we did for the Learning Conference talk, because the way we're going to be using attended is the same way that people are going to use the verb attended at all conferences. So if I attend a session at the Learning Conference or I attend a session at Devlearn, we're going to want to use the same verb ID so that we're all referring to the same thing. This first option right here shows the verb ID as its activitystream.ms, activity streams /schema/1.0/attend. That activity streams domain is outdated, and I got this information from Jason Hogg. He runs Veracity Learning Record Store, which is one of my favorites these days. But the most up-to-date verb ID for attended is this adlnet.gov verb ID. So we're actually going to choose this second option. Okay, when you type in attended, choose the adlnet.gov option. And the verb display now won't have anything in it. We're just going to type in attended. And the verb display is just like the plain English version of what the verb is, kind of like how we had the talk ID, which was that long URI, and then just the talk display, which is just the plain English version. So I think this would be a good time to show you this resource. It's really important. If you go back to the reference page that you all opened up, you'll see, go to link 2 right here, xapi.vocab.pub/verbs/index.html. And that will bring you to this page. This page lists all of these verb IDs that the xAPI community which is essentially the learning and development community, this lists all those verb IDs that the community has already agreed upon. So instead of making my own, ID like the learningconference.com/online/attended, I'm going to do Control F and search this page for the attended verb. And sure enough, here we are, the first one, adlnet.gov. It indicates that the actor was present at a virtual or physical event or activity. Sure enough, that's exactly the message we're trying to send here. So this is the URL we're going to go with, or the URI, sorry, I should say. So again, that was already an option over here. We don't need to copy and paste it ourselves. So I'm back in Zapier. Again, we're not going to dive too far into the URIs. I hope that this is clear enough though. And we're changing the verb display to attended. We're almost done. Once you have the verb set up, here's our ID, here's our display. Now we need to pass that information from Zapier about the xAPI object, which in this case is also referred to as an activity. Okay, so the activity ID is sample value 2. That's that talk URI, that long URL for the learning conference session. And the activity name, that's just the plain English version of it. That is value 3. Okay, and again, we set these values when we were over in Glide. So once you have this set up like this, we don't need to add anything else to this xAPI statement. So I'm just going to scroll down to the bottom. You can make the xAPI statements obviously much more complex, and what goes in these different values is determined by the spec. But we don't need to add that for this simple actor verb object statement. So scroll down and press the blue continue button. Okay, it wants us to test and continue. We're actually going to test this ourselves because there's not going to be any data to send right now. So go ahead and press skip test. You might need to scroll up a bit if your screen isn't very big, but there's this blue skip test option above all of this sample data. All right, so we have officially set up the Zap. All we need to do is at the bottom here, change this off toggle to on. And you can do that just by clicking it. It might take a few seconds. If you look in the top right, you'll know it's on because that toggle will be green and it will say on. So if you made it that far, I'm going to go to the left next to the Zapier logo and press this little back button. And here's the Zapier homepage. We're almost done, okay? So now we need to hop back over to the Glide tab. Once this Zap is on, we're good. We're going to go back over to this Glide tab. And we need to finish configuring that button. We told it what data we want to pass, but we haven't told it which Zap to use because we didn't have it set up yet. So in Glide, I want everyone to click on this very first icon on the left-hand side where it says layout. Okay. So on the left-hand side, we're clicking on that layout tab. And now once again, we'll just click on this very first session to dive in here. Okay, so from the home screen, we go to layout, we click on a session to get back to this sessions details page. And on the right-hand side, you'll see the list of your components. So at the very bottom, you'll see that button component. Let's go ahead and select that component so we can finish editing it. So click on the button component at the bottom of that list of components, and then click on features next to where it says layout on that right menu. So it defaults to layout. We're going to click on features. And sure enough, now this second drop-down box isn't grayed out anymore. Now we can actually use the Zap that we set up. And again, I named mine attendance recorder. So go ahead and select your Zap. And if everything works well, then we'll see our button here at the bottom. That's exactly what we want to see. Value 1 is that email address, 2 is the talk URI, 3 is the talk. We're looking good. We're ready to share this app now and test it out. So click on this blue share button at the top of your screen. Once you see that button there, it will give you the option to publish the app. That's what we want to do. So it might take a few seconds, but once it's published, it will give you this default app link that you can use to access it. So you can change that link to something unique as long as it's not taken by another Glide app. I'm not going to bother with that. I'm just going to click copy because we just want to test this here. I'm going to open a new tab and I'm going to paste that URL right into my browser. Again, once the app loads up, it's going to ask you for your email address. So I'm going to go ahead and type in my email address. You can change these options when you're setting up a Glide app. This one is public with email. And this email is important to us because if we didn't have something that we could identify the user by, we wouldn't be able to send an xAPI statement that's user specific. So once you type in your email address, it's going to send you a PIN. Again, that might take a minute or so. I'm going to wait until I receive it. It'll be a 5-digit PIN. So I just got mine. I'm going to go ahead and enter that. And then click sign in. We will see this little beautiful app here. I'm going to go ahead and go to the schedule this time. So I'm going to go to the schedule tab and I'm just going to pick a random, I'll pick this learning on the job session. And I'm going to scroll to the bottom and click mark as attended. And again, you can do this from any session. So I'll just click on this one. It says that my attendance was recorded. That's exactly what we want to see. Now it's the cool part is we'll go ahead and look in Watershed and see if our xAPI statement is there. So I'll give everyone a few seconds to catch up. Again, all we're doing is testing it. We want to get this app in a live window and click that mark as attended button for one of the sessions. After that's done, go back to the Watershed LRS window. If you left it where you had it last time, you'll be on this xAPI data tab. We just want to go up two little tabs from that to where it says data search. And in Watershed, this is how you access your xAPI statement stream. No matter what LRS you have, there will always be a way to access this. So I'm going to click on data search right now, scroll down a little bit, and sure enough, here we have it. We can see some Zapier tests making sure that it can communicate with Watershed. But the statement we're most concerned about is this one, Devlin Peck at gmail.com, attended learning on the job. And if you click on this statement, it will expand and you can see the full JSON object that this statement is comprised of. If this looks confusing and codey to you, don't worry about it. Again, this is really intro, no code stuff. But here's where we have that talk ID. Here's the name of the talk, learning on the job. Here's that verb ID we added so that we know exactly, how we're using the attended verb. And again, just another example of why this is important is because think about the word played. You can play a game of football or you can play a video. The reason we have these verb IDs is so that we know in what context you're using this verb. And that's why we want to use the community agreed upon verbs. A big part of xAPI is being interoperable so that data from different tools works together nicely. And whether it's a machine or a person looking at it, we can make good sense of what's happening in the statement. So just to show you again, I can go to a different one. We'll go to game development and scroll down and click mark as attended. It's taking a second here. Oh, here we go. It tells us that our attendance was recorded. So let's go ahead and refresh this. Here we have it. Devlin Peck at gmail.com attended game development. So hopefully you're able to get this working. If not, again, don't worry. This recording will be available. We moved really fast, I know. I do want to show you some more applications of this. So you might be thinking, this is cool. We're sending an xAPI statement from a Glide app. So what? Well, here's the thing. A couple of things. First of all, let's look at this chat tab. Okay. There's this conference chat. When you try to send a message, and again, you don't need to follow along here. I'm just going to demo some stuff really quick. So, I could type in my name here and then I can send a message, say like, hello, everyone. And because this is powered by a Google Sheet, this data will get saved on the Google Sheet. Okay. So if I go over here, I'm going to go to the very last sheet in this Google Sheet. And on this app comments tab, we can see, it says my username, Devlin, my email address, and my comment. It says exactly what I included here. So using a Zap, in this case, it would be a Google Sheet to Watershed Zap. We can send an xAPI statement with the person's username, their email address, a verb like posted. We could say that they posted to the learning conference chat, and we can actually include what they're saying. Okay, so this can be really cool if you want to filter for certain keywords and hear how people are speaking about the company or a new update or policy. You can track that with xAPI, and not just from a Google Sheet, but also from Slack or Microsoft Teams. you can track everything that's happening in these apps using xAPI by setting up ZAPs. So again, you would just click this create a ZAP option, and you could type in Teams. And here we have it, Microsoft Teams. You can do Slack. Also, we probably could have made that button pointless, because you can actually send xAPI statements whenever someone registers for a Zoom session. So, if we look at Zoom here, a new registrant, every time someone registers, we'll have the information that Zoom has, and we can pick and choose where we want that to go in the xAPI statement using Zapier. And just to give you some more examples, this one is my personal favorite. So I've been talking about how we can get data to a learning record store from these different apps, but you can also use data that gets sent to the learning record store to trigger events in other apps. So you see here, learning record store to drip or active campaign. These are email automation tools. So, you can make it so that whenever the LRS receives a statement that someone maybe failed an e-learning quiz, you can automatically send them an email that has additional resources or guidance and a link to hop right back into that quiz and try again. So that's email automation and xAPI, really cool opportunities with Zapier. And just a final example, there are look here. So Talent LMS, there are different learning management systems that have Zapier integrations too. I hear some, but cool. I think I need to wrap up now, but yeah, just as that last example, you can pull data from a learning management system into a Glide app by pulling that data back into the Google Sheet. So I'm gonna stop sharing there. I don't know if we have any time for questions, but.
Thank you so much, Devlin. We do have time for one question. Someone's asked, can we get reports from data in Watershed, like number of participants attended?
Yeah, so there are a couple of ways to work with reporting. So Watershed does have some very basic reporting options for their free forever Watershed plan. You can also, their more advanced analytics are all behind their paid accounts, which can get quite expensive. But the cool thing about xAPI is you can set up statement forwarding so that whenever that Watershed LRS receives a statement, you can automatically forward that out to another learning record store where maybe it has some better, some reporting capabilities that you like better. So that's the thing, it's not like learning management systems where once you use one, you're locked in. xAPI data is free. You can send it to and from learning record stores without paying more. And you can do that in a matter of minutes. So, and you can also download it as an Excel sheet. There are ways to query the LRS with code. So there are definitely options for that. I'm sure their free plan has some ways to see like the number of participants who sent a statement.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Devlin. We're getting great comments in the chat. Your explanation of the process must have been good because we didn't get a lot of people. There was hardly anyone getting stuck. So yeah, thank you so much for that clear.
Nice.
And it's been amazing to have you at the Learning Conference.
Nice. Yeah, it was fun presenting. Cool. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.